What is up, guys? It's me, Anthony, back with another episode of Constellation, and we're 2 episodes in already, and I don't think I know what the heck's going on, but let's talk about it. But hey, if you're new to this channel, then you're going to be joining me in this crazy ride. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can be up to date with everything Constellation. And don't forget to check out the first episode recap and theories video that I did over here. Check that one out, then come back to this one because we're going to talk about so much stuff in here. Theories that I had in the first episode are kind of being realized in the second episode, but then at the same time, they're also being construed and mixed and going different directions. I don't know what's going on. But the way I do these videos is I give you my recap, then I give you a review of the episode, then we talk about theories and just random stuff that I saw in the episode. So if you're into that kind of stuff, again, subscribe to the channel and let's just get right into this. This is episode 2 of Constellation. The episode starts off with Joe trying to warm up Alice after finding her in the cabinet at the end of the previous episode. Joe starts boiling some water for Alice when she sees Alice's reflection in one of the cabinet windows. This Alice is in a different location than the Alice in the tub that Joe rescued from the cabinet. The Alice in the tub calls out to Joe, but before Joe can reach her, the other Alice calls her as well. The Alice in the tub disappears and Joe smells the other Alice's hair to make sure she is her Alice. And I know at this point I'm throwing her Alice, this Alice. Trust me, I'm just as confused as you. Figuring out that her Alice isn't the one who is currently with her, Joe asks Alice where the other Alice is. I think at this point I should just do Alice 1 or Alice 2. Let me know in the comments down below if that will be even helpful. Back in space, Joe realizes that she has lost a lot of time and only has 6 hours left of life support. Joe continues to try to repair the ship so she can return to Earth, but she is running out of time. Joe starts to record herself for the people back on Earth when she hears a voice in the distance. She starts to play back her recording and hears that the sound is kind of distorted. In the recording, she can also hear Paul's voice and it says, "Stop breathing, Joe, stay in destiny." Joe goes to investigate the sound and sees Paul's severed arm floating in the other part of the space station. She opens the door and grabs Paul's arm, and for a moment she sees Paul as if he is in the same room as her, alive and well. Back on Earth, Henry is trying to convince Irene to help him make sure Joe gets the device that Paul was working on, and Henry asks Irene if she heard from her sister, and Irene says that he knows that she has passed away. And then she asks Henry if he has heard from his brother, and Henry replies that he hasn't heard from him in many years. Now this scene is totally bonkers and totally confusing, but again, I have some theories about this and this will be in the theory section, so if you can't wait, there's going to be timestamps down below and you can just go skip to that. Back in space, Joe finally gets one of the escape pods to work and tries to contact Earth, but only gets a recorded response. The recording tells her that she has to manually coordinate her return and that she must retrieve the Cal device. As Joe gets ready to return to Earth, she is faced with a malfunction that can only be fixed by having someone else on the other side of the escape pod push a release button. We then see a shadowy figure float over the control panel and push the button, releasing Joe from the space station. Joe sees the shadowy figure but can't make out who it is. Back on Earth, Irene and Henry talk about the project and how it's going to get shut down now after all these latest events. Henry says that Irene knows what he has been working on all these years and asks Irene if she is not curious about the illness that she is an expert on. Joe starts to re-enter the Earth's orbit and finally gets in contact with the Earth space station. Henry and the rest of the people at the station scramble to get people ready to recover Joe from the escape pod as well as the device. Upon landing, Joe opens the escape pod hatch and a wolf comes at her for some random reason. Before it can attack, a person from the rescue team fires a gunshot to scare it off. Henry retrieves the Cal device and is shocked to see that something is there, and he says that it can't be there, but it is there. So there's that. Joe and her family are on the helicopter getting ready to take off when Alice is suddenly all by herself in a different reality. The same thing happens to Joe, but only for a short time, as she is back in her reality along with Alice and her ex-husband. Joe speaks to Alice in her native tongue, but Alice doesn't understand her. So you know what that means. Back in what we can safely call another reality, Joe and the other Alice go out into the snow to look for the other Joe's other Alice, and the episode ends. So that is episode 2 of Constellation, and if you're confused by this point, join the club. But I will say that even though we're only 2 episodes in, I'm already hooked. I'm already invested to see what this story is going to be, where Henry and Irene's connection, where that's gonna go, because they be saying some stuff that it's like totally sus, and we gotta figure that out. But I did like that this episode just went full ham and just full like different realities and random stuff going on. I do wish that they kind of like, held our hand just a little bit, just a little bit, and kind of navigated us and told us what was going on. But I know a lot of people like that aspect of shows when they don't really tell you, they do the show, don't tell kind of aspect of storytelling. But for me, I'm just like so confused by some of the stuff and some of the elements and the talking points that they're talking about that for me, I'm speaking for myself, I would have liked a little bit more explanation, exposition of what the heck is going on. But the characters in this show don't really know what's going on apart from Irene and Henry. But another strong episode of Constellation. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you like this episode? Did you hate this episode? What do you feel about the whole time jump skipping reality? The 2 Alices, the 2 Joes? What's up with that? So now we're at that part of the video where we talk about the theories. And if you're new to me doing that, that's just gonna stay, because we're just gonna do it. But this is where I talk about the theories and some of the stuff that I saw in the episode that I just wanted to talk about. And the first thing I want to talk about is that this episode pretty much confirms that we're dealing with at least 2 different realities, because there's 2 different Joes at least, right? Because there's a Joe that has her Alice, and then there's another Joe that has her Alice. That makes any sense. But I think that's just really cemented and confirmed just the way that the 2 different Alices react to the 2 different Joes. One Alice doesn't even understand Norwegian, and then the other Alice does understand Norwegian. So that's an easy way to figure out that there's 2 different Alices. The other thing isn't really a theory, but more of like a guess or hunch. I guess that's what a theory is. But Henry and Irene, they know about the different realities for sure. I'm like 90% sure that they know what is going on. And that also bleeds into like the pills that they were taking in the first episode. I'm leaning a little bit even more towards my theory of the pills that they were taking has to do something with the realities and going back and forth between them, because they even talk about it in this episode about this illness that Irene is an expert on. And I'm like, that has to be the whole time slipping, jumping realities thing. Maybe that pill that they got prevents them from doing that whole time jump reality skipping crap. And then we got that shadowy figure on this International Space Station that helped Joe escape and go down to Earth. I'm pretty sure that is like a different reality version of Paul. And the reason why I think of that is because, when she touched Paul's hand, which was a weird scene, but when she touched his severed hand, they had that brief moment where the realities like came together and they were like holding each other's hand. That also makes me think, who was Paul like holding? Was it a severed hand of Joe in his reality? Did Joe die instead of Paul? That's really cool to think about, and really interested to see if they actually, show us more of the Paul reality. But I'm pretty sure that the shadowy figure that helped Joe out was Paul. And just another thing that I noticed in this episode is Alice's dad and the guy that trained Joe like for 4 years or something. They got a relationship, they got something going on, they got some history. I think that Joe kind of like maybe had an affair with this guy, and that's why another thing to add on to the estrangedness between, Joe and her estranged husband, because that's why he's estranged. But the last thing I want to talk about that really caught me off guard, and I'm not really sure what to make of it, is the whole wolf thing. What was that scene? I don't know if that scene has any significance. I guess we're gonna have to see and find out, but it was weird. A random wolf just appeared. Really bad CGI for an Apple TV series, in my opinion. They showed the wolf almost attack Joe and then it goes away. I don't know if that was just a random scene. If it was a random scene, that's hilarious. But if it wasn't, I'm just going to give the show a benefit of the doubt that that wolf thing has some kind of significance to the series as a whole. But we'll see. But of course, guys, let me know what your theories are in the comments down below. What do you think about my theory about the Irene and Henry knowing what the heck is going on? I think that's pretty safe to assume that they know something. And what do you think about the wolf? I can't be alone in thinking that was a weird scene, but let me know in the comments down below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you want more Constellation or any other TV series or random movie reviews that I put out. This is a good place for all that stuff. And as always, guys, keep watching.